97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It is a Thursday here on Sports Daily. Glad to be here with you. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor alongside you. Jed Chambers back producing for us today, manning that IHOP hotline, which is available to you as it always is. And it's brought to you by IHOP. Try the 2x2x2, 2 eggs your way, 2 bacon strips, or 2 pork sausage links, and 2 buttermilk pancakes for just $7. Go to IHOP to check that out. We appreciate it. That number, 869-1240. You can also get in touch with the program on our video streams, which you'll find via Facebook, YouTube, and X. And you can leave your comments there. We'll get to them. You can also stream the show on the Odyssey app. If you're not near a radio or a computer, you can do that right there from your phone. Always a cool way to listen to the program as well. We've got NBA draft talk coming tonight. A little local flair, but sort of disappointing for us around here is Johnny Furphy does not go in the first round. So we'll dive into that. A former Sunrise Christian player does go in the first round, although perhaps a little bit later than maybe we anticipated. We can get into the NBA draft, and of course, all eyes now on Bronny James as well. The Royals get it done in the series finale. What they need to do is they now look ahead to a massive series coming up tonight and through the weekend against Cleveland. So a lot to get to today. Tommy, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Happy Thursday. Good to see you today. I know that, of course, we've got that huge Royals series to get into. Were you locked into the NBA draft, though? Because I was not.
Not at all.
I honestly.
No, because I didn't know enough of the players with the international flair of it this year. And we talked about it yesterday. I get why there's an international flair. I am not tuned in enough to know if that's a trend, because probably the 4 or 5 best players in the world right now are all international players, or if it's genuinely that way. And if it's genuinely that play, like I don't know anything about these international dudes. So it's far less interesting to me when we get these sorts of classes. So no, not at all. I was just sort of following along the picks and just seeing where guys went and waiting and hoping that Furphy would go, because we know the money's better. And then I was mildly interested in where Matas Buzelis went, because of course he played at Sunrise Christian. He ended up at 11 with the Bulls, but it was more about Furphy and just hoping he would end up in the first round. He did not. So that was about it for me. Like I couldn't even give you the top 3 at this point. Because I don't know the 2 French guys at all. I mean, I know their names because we've seen them, but I don't know these players.
Yeah, I don't know them either. I'm not really paying super close attention to international basketball to be able to give you, a good scouting report on these guys. And yeah, we're going to be focused on, the players that we're familiar with, the guys that we know locally, and all of that. There were some notable players from college basketball last season that did get drafted in various places. Zach Edey went into the top 10. Dalton Connect went in the top 20. Terrence Shannon from Illinois went in the top 25. So there were, some names. The Baylor Shireman kid from Creighton went in the top 25 too. So some recognizable names from college basketball. But, there's been a lot of talk about how, I guess, comparatively weak this year's draft class is compared to previous years. And I don't know if weak is fair, and I'm not the one to assess that, but at least from a name recognition standpoint, I can get behind that. It's a lot less name recognition this year than what I'm used to.
The NBA draft does a nice job. It's just not quite, like last year we had Grady Dick. We were obviously locked in last year. But it takes something like that. If there's a, transcendent couple of players at the time, this one just didn't have a whole lot of
There's
not
not
juice,
a Victor Wembanyama, in the
right.
draft, so.
And that's okay. Like, that's fine. It's not a big deal. I saw somebody put out there yesterday, what if they just did the lottery like an hour or 2 before the draft? That is a phenomenal idea. That would be so awesome.
It'd be chaotic, but
crazy
chaotic.
It'd be so great. But no, it's fine. Now it's Furphy. And the other thing is, the number one storyline of this draft is Bronny James, and he's probably not going until the second round. So I think it's just a circumstance of this year as much as anything. And we can dig into, the couple of the players we do know, the college guys, because we watch so much college hoops. We can get into that as we make our way through. But the Furphy thing is really interesting on about 1,000 different levels. So that's probably where we'll spend most of our attention on the draft today. The Royals, the other big storyline, get it done against the Marlins yesterday, 5-1. They took a minute, they didn't do anything until the 8th inning, and then they put 5 runs together. It's good to see them get the win, no doubt about it. I don't think it's a win that makes you feel like they've snapped out of it. I mean, maybe an 8th inning like that can be the catalyst to do that. But I don't think you watch that series, even that game, and think, all right, they're back, because it was just like another struggle fest until that 8th inning when they finally, kind of moved the train with 2 outs and a 2-out rally and got it done, which is great. They had to get it done. That's the thing. You've got to be able to just sort of limp through this. I don't think any of us can predict when it's going to stop. When when whatever this is, this ice cold offense, this bad timing, all of it, I don't think we can really predict when it'll stop. But you still have got to find ways to win games against bad teams in that stretch. You hope that 8th inning is the catalyst right into the Cleveland series. I mean, wouldn't that be handy? But I don't think that game really screams that to me the way they played in that series.
Yeah, no, and it really, obviously, the 8th inning was the offensive output for Kansas City, no doubt about that. I would almost rather that come in the 8th inning than come in the 2nd inning, because at least they're ending the game, that way, and hopefully they can, maybe they unlocked something that can then carry on through into this weekend against Cleveland. I do think that one of the main positives that you can take away from yesterday was, again, the pitching was pretty superb. Brady Singer pitched a really good game, one of his best outings of the year. 7 1/3, only 1 run, 5 hits. He only allowed 1 walk throughout that time. That was the good Brady Singer. That's the Brady Singer that, I think that we'd all love to see consistently. And again, I think not only was that outing superb, but the fact that they didn't have to put a load of pressure on the bullpen is also extremely important, knowing that you've got a crucial 4-game set starting tonight. It was Zerpa for 2/3 of an inning, and then MacArthur came in the 9th. And so I think that helps get them a little bit more rested, a little bit more ready to go. You've almost got the bullpen, at full strength, or as close to full strength as you can, after playing several games in a row and knowing that you're going right into the Cleveland series. So in that regard, I do feel good about that. And hopefully from an offensive point of view, like you mentioned, that 8th inning can carry over into tonight and this weekend.
I don't have a proper grasp on this series with Cleveland. I don't know. I don't even know what to hope for. I guess you hope for a split at home. That doesn't feel like enough.
I think you hope for taking 3 or 4, because at that point, then at least you're gaining some ground on.
I don't even know. I don't know how to. I don't even know how to like realistically say that at this point, because it just seems. It doesn't seem logical, I guess. Now, don't listen. They could win all 4 of these games, and they gained a game on Cleveland. Cleveland lost yesterday, but I just don't know. The problem for me is the Royals aren't playing well, right? If the Royals were in peak like May form, I would be able to very clearly have a hope and an expectation for this series. The expectation, honestly, would be to take 3 or 4 at home, and the hope would be to sweep. But the way that they're playing now over this period of time, you'd hoped that maybe they snapped out of it against Oakland, Texas, and Miami, the weakest part of their schedule they've played thus far. Didn't happen. I mean, there is a slight possibility, I guess, that the 8th inning yesterday could be that thing that wakes them up, but I doubt it. It wasn't. It just still feels like the offense is, even in a game where they scored 5 runs, even in a game earlier in the series where they hit 3 home runs, it feels like the offense is struggling, and I don't think that's unfair at all. I think that's totally fair. And so you come into this series now, and I'm just like, man, I think I kind of just hope for a split, because remember when we kicked the first Cleveland series down the road a little bit, and we're like, all right, that rain out was a great thing. They're not playing very well. Well, they still haven't started playing well since that point. And so, yeah, got it kicked down the road. You get this 4-game set now, and it's like, well, that didn't work out, because they're playing just as poorly or quite frankly, maybe even worse than they were at that point now. So it's a little, it's a little nerve-wracking as an observer. I don't know what it's like inside that locker room. I've not been with this group, but it feels like there's a lot of pressure, and that's not always a good thing.
Well, I think they've got to win the series if they have any chance whatsoever to try to catch the Guardians in the AL Central. And I think that because we all know that the chances of that get slimmer and slimmer as each day goes by, and as that gap gets a little bit wider. It's at 9 games right now. So they were able to gain a little bit of ground yesterday, which is good entering this 4-game set. But if you don't win this series, let's say that the Guardians take 3 or 4, you're out of the AL Central race, 100%.
Probably.
Because I don't think they have the firepower at that point
It's
to then make
because
a
of
run, and the Guardians are
Guardians.
so good, and they
It's
just
the Guardian.
win. That's all they
Yeah.
do. They just go out and handle their business. They've got the best record in baseball, or at least one of the top 2 or 3 records in baseball as of right now, with a couple of the juggernaut teams, the Yankees and the Phillies and whatnot. So, they've got to keep that in mind, that if this series falls away from them, then really your only hope is a wild card spot. And it's probably to just sneak into maybe that 3rd wild card spot if you've got that opportunity. Because look, I mean, as talented as the Royals are, and they've shown a lot of fight this season, and I even think that even adding reinforcements at the trade deadline, that's good, but I still don't know if that's enough to catch Cleveland if you lose this series. I'm looking at this big picture. I'm looking at it long term between now and the end of the season. If you end up double-digit games behind Cleveland at the beginning of July, I'm just not sure that you're going to be able to have a prayer to get back into that particular race. They'd have to shift their focus entirely to the wild card. If they take 3 or 4, or if they sweep, and that's unlikely, but if they do, then at that point, you still have, I think, a shot and a hope to get back into the AL Central race and be the winners of that division when it's all said and done.
It's to me, it's more about Cleveland than it is Kansas City on why that task seems so daunting. We keep waiting for Cleveland to stumble. They just aren't. And are they going to maintain and have the best record in the American League by the end of the season? Oh, it seems crazy, but they just keep doing it. And I think, they're never really aggressive. It doesn't feel like at the trade deadline. So I don't know how much better they're going to get. It's the problem is it just doesn't seem like they're going to be bad. It seems like they're going to pace that to 95, 96 or more wins. And if that happens, that's the part that makes this difficult. I think it's absolutely possible and probably likely, in fact, that the Royals heat back up and get hot and finish and do all the things we expect them to be able to do and all that stuff. But I don't think that's going to be enough to catch Cleveland because Cleveland's too good. So if the Royals get this thing back on track and end up winning, let's say 91, 92 games, which I think feels like a pretty good ceiling for them, that's not going to be enough to overtake Cleveland, I don't think. That's why now this series doesn't even feel as important as it once did, because you almost have to just forget about them and worry more about Minnesota and Boston and Baltimore and, Texas and Houston and Tampa and those teams, because I just don't think Cleveland's going to let anybody run them down. I mean, they're really, really good. Surprises us. As surprising as Kansas City. I think we expected them to be good, but not this good. And they just are. And so that makes the task of chasing them down seem impossible. If you sweat them, you'd still be 5 games back. You know what I mean? It's like that. That's what's crazy about this. And who knows? Baseball's crazy. It is only June 27th. Have we even played 81 games yet? The Royals have played 82 games. So they just crossed the threshold. Yeah, it could happen. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying it's impossible or anything like that. It just, based on what we've seen, it just doesn't seem like Cleveland's going to give them the opportunity, no matter how hot they get, to chase them down. So now you just refocus a little bit. And that's why I say, if you're not, and I'm not, so I'm just speaking for myself, I'm not expecting them to chase down Cleveland anymore. Now you play a great series while you're not playing well against a really, really good team. Just get through it with a split. And that's sort of what I'm hoping for. Maybe they take 3 or 4. That'd be great. Look, the Royals could awaken at any moment and be in great shape. They do get Reagans and Lugo in this series. They won't get Singer, who pitched yesterday, but he was really good in the day. They should just figure out a way to let him pitch all the day games the rest of the season, because that's kind of his thing. Um, I'm glad they won yesterday. Don't misunderstand. I'm glad the Royals won yesterday. It does not feel like, even after taking 2 of 3 of Miami from Miami, Tommy, that they're anywhere near back.
Well, they made the Marlins pitching look a lot better than what they actually are. It's not a good pitching staff at all that Miami has, but they kind of made the Royals look silly in a couple of pretty long stretches in this series, and it took a 5-run eighth inning for the Royals to finally break through. If I'm JJ Piccolo, going back to the long-term strategy, as much as I want the Royals in the race and to pursue for playoff contention, for sure, that's what he wants. The next month, if I'm Piccolo, I'm thinking by the time the trade deadline comes around, when we get close to that time period, I either need the Royals to be completely in or completely out. And because at that point, your decision making becomes a little bit easier. And I think right now, I don't think it's a slam dunk one way or another about what they're going to do, how much they're going to do, what they're going to address, for what purpose, for what reason. I think it changes things a little bit if all of a sudden the AL Central title is out of reach and they're solely pushing for a wild card. I think that changes the direction. I don't know if you are quite as aggressive of a buyer at that point. I don't know if you go all in trying to acquire somebody at the trade deadline if you've become limited in what you can do, and that's battling for a wild card spot. I just don't know if that makes it makes you that much more aggressive. So if I'm Piccolo, I'm like, by the trade deadline, I either need them to be back and getting hot, and we feel super confident that the playoffs are going to happen one way or another, or I need them basically out of it, because right now I do feel like you're sort of in that middle ground where it's not a slam dunk one way or another.
I think you still push all your chips in. I think you might alter the type of player you trade for. Maybe it's not a rest of this season only rental and a rest of this season and next season player, because I think that you have to look at this window based on some of the free agent pitching contracts as a 2-year window here. Even if they don't get it done this year, if they can still go acquire a player or two that helps them for the rest of this season and next season, I think it will have been worth it. The one thing I don't worry about if I'm the Royals is, well, what about the long-term future? Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez are the long-term future. Looking any further than them is a fool's errand right now. The future is doing everything you can to win while those two are in Kansas City. Salvador Perez will get older, continue to get older, as we all do, right? And his window will close. Bobby Witt Jr., there's absolutely no guarantee, even with the big contract he got, that the second he hits free agency, the Royals could even be competitive in keeping him around. So you have to think that way, in my opinion, if you're the Royals. The window is not XYZ minor league player, untouchable, blah, blah. I don't think they have those types of players really, but it is all about what you can do while you have Bobby Witt Jr. and I think Salvador Perez. So any moves you make, as long as it helps those two potentially win while they're both, still playing in Kansas City, that's the ticket. It isn't, what about this player that could really help us in 5 or 6 years? This 18, nope, don't care. Don't care because the Royals haven't afforded themselves that, right? They've been way too bad for way too long to be able to sell that to a fan base. Hey guys, I know we've sucked. I know we're way behind schedule. This has been this great year, but we really got to worry about 2029 when we're at the trade deadline in 2023 or 2024 in contention. We can't sacrifice 2029, to help ourselves win now. Even though we haven't won anything in the last 7 years.
I'm not concerned about 2029, and I don't even think the front office is. But I do think
I don't think they are either. I think fans.
But if there are similarities drawn, and I think that there are some comparisons that can be made between this season and 2014. Remember, the Royals weren't super aggressive in 2014. They felt like they maybe had a window then next year in 2015, and they did. And so, it's not 2029. But I think it could be 2025. I think that's okay. I think it's all right if it's 2025.
But do you remember and I agree with you because I think the parallels are strong. in the way this could be handled. The difference to me, though, and by the way, in 2014, and I mean, maybe I was hitting Sports Daily occasionally with Bruce back then, but around the water cooler, I would have said, I don't want them to go make a bunch of. The difference was they had a ton of good young players on that team, like a ton of them, up and down the lineup. You guys like Danny Duffy sitting there waiting to take off some of these pitchers this isn't that roster makeup. This is 2 star players with a really good and deep starting rotation, and that's it.
And should be there next year. That nucleus should be there in 2025.
Which is why you want to help. That they're not going to be there in 2025. These pitchers, Seth Lugo and Michael Walker, are not going to be there in 2025.
Your two stars will be there in 2025.
Name me one minor league player in this organization right now that you think will help this team next year.
I'm not concerned about the minor league players in next season, because they could absolutely go out and replicate what they did with Lugo and Waka this coming off season if those two guys don't return next year.
That's right, in 2 years. But that's why you make the moves now, is what I'm saying. That's the difference. In 2014, there were a lot of players right there on the cusp that they thought could help them win either that
if they
year
were focused
or
on
the year after.
If they were focused on 2 or 3 or 6 years down the line, then they would be sellers and they would be getting rid of these assets to stock up their farm system. That's not what they're going to do. But I think it is okay to say, look, this year, I'm not sure we're going to be able to catch the Guardians. So maybe we play for next season. Maybe we don't get aggressive this year. We play for next year.
That's my point, though. What can they do? Like, not doing anything is
stand pat.
But there's nothing. Well, let's continue this into the break. We're up against a break. We're going to take a break. On the way out here, real quick, let's set up our giveaway. One of the 2 giveaways we'll do today. This will be the Dam Jam, one of the hottest festivals out in Goddard, Kansas, is July 19th and 20th. You can see Brantley Gilbert, Stone Temple Pilots, Dustin Lynch, Jody Messina, many more. We're giving away 2 pairs of 2-day general admission tickets. All you have to do to win, pay attention here, party, the keyword party, P-A-R-T-Y, text it to 20357, and you could be on your way to an epic festival experience. Winners will be announced tomorrow, Friday at 6 o'clock. Message and data rates apply. Good luck, everybody. That's party to 20357. We'll come back. We'll talk about the trade deadline for the Royals when we return on Sports Daily.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy. have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
Welcome back in, everybody. It is Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. We are talking about, well, the Kansas City Royals, and the trade deadline is where we're sort of headed. Not even intentionally, but it is the interesting thing that's happening sort of as they play these games. So here's my thing with the deadline. There's not really a future to mortgage by being aggressive at the deadline. Now, I will say that getting 1-year rental players maybe makes a little less sense, but instead of that, then look for players you can use for 2 years. Because I think the only window that the front office needs to be thinking about at all is the next 2 years. They have to win some games. They are so far behind schedule of a rebuild, and that's the most disappointing thing, and why last year was particularly disappointing is because we had been sold this bill on, okay, that, the rebuild's going to take a little time and then they'll be back. Man, not only did they not get back, but there was no hope for the future, right? There was no farm system. Like what are you now? You can't even really say you're waiting on something. They've either been called up or, they're already there and they didn't develop in the minor leagues, which is what happened far more often. And so you look at it now in this 2-year window with this starting pitching with your 2-star players. I don't think you're any less aggressive because of that. I think you maybe just look at, 1.5-year players rather than just rentals. Now, over the next month, they may win enough games where you're like, all right, fine, rental, no big deal. They're very much in the wild card. That could still be the case. But if they made a move today, just go find an older player where you can eat the money and get next year of control too.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm on board with that, because at that point you are going to have to give up assets on the thought of like, okay, are they going to be a contender this year? Like next year is a different conversation, but in my mind, it's either you go and you find a rental. If you feel confident that this team is going to make the playoffs and make a run, then you go and find a rental to help you right now, or you don't. And then the other option is you do nothing at the trade deadline, in my opinion. You wait until the off season, and then you try to go maybe in free agency, or maybe there's some off season like winter trades that potentially you make to go all in on 2025. That's the way that I would do it, because I understand that 2-year window, but I think that you can separate the two a little bit, because I'm not sure if the assets that you would be giving up right now, that I don't know if that's going to be worth a gamble on the playoffs this year and then a gamble on next season. I'd rather do one or the other.
There's just the problem, though, and what I don't understand is, there are a couple of players that the Royals would probably tag as untouchable, right? And Blake Mitchell, there aren't very many, though. My thing is, like, for what they're going to be able to acquire, there's not really anything in the farm system. They have one top 100 prospect right now in baseball. So if you're trading things, you're probably trading them really young, undeveloped players. Might that bite you 5 years from now? It might. But as an organization, the thing that will bite you more than any other thing right now is to not take advantage of this year and next year.
I agree.
I just don't. But so if that's the case, if they're anywhere close to sniffing the playoffs this year, why wouldn't you make a couple of small tweaks to just get there this year too? I don't understand why you wouldn't do it.
It's kind of like, and I know you're a poker guy. It's kind of like when you're playing poker and you've got a certain number of outs, right? Like when with your hand, and depending on what you do, like the number of outs that the Royals have will be smaller if they can't battle for the division title. I think that's the decision maker for me. It's like if you're still within shouting distance of the Guardians, where then you can say, okay, we're going to, our ultimate
Be the wild
goal,
card. Be the wild card.
I understand. I get that. But my point is that if you really only have the shot at one wild card spot, maybe 2 wild card spots, then your margin for error to make the playoffs is a lot smaller than if all 3 wild card spots were in view and even a division title. And I think that that's what ultimately will end up happening, especially like if this series this weekend doesn't go the Royals' way, then they're done in the actual division race. They've only got really probably 1 wild card spot, maybe 2, if they get really hot, that they can contend for. Why would you want to roll the dice on those, couple of options to make the playoffs when, I would just rather roll with the team that I have in hopes that I can maybe snag that final wild card spot and then put all of my efforts into making the team better for next year.
What are you afraid of them doing if they're aggressive this year? Like, what's your fear?
I'm afraid of them. I'm afraid of them getting rid of, even if it's not like premium assets in the farm system, but assets in general. I'm afraid of them giving away players for a rental for this year, and then they don't end up making the playoffs. And then you have no more ammunition to make yourself better for 2025. That would be my concern. I would rather them do nothing. If they're only competing for one final wildcard spot, I would rather them do nothing and roll with the team that they have and wait until the offseason and go all in on 2025.
I guess I'm just not afraid of anything. They're not trading Blake Mitchell for Tommy Pham. Like, that's not going to happen. So I guess I just don't understand what I would be afraid of in being aggressive this year. I don't think any player, whether they're ultra aggressive or mildly aggressive, is going to come at a cost that people are scared of. They just don't have anything to trade.
But then I think you also have to compare not only the cost that people should be afraid of, but that you have to compare like the impact. If you're going to do that, if it's really not going to give up a whole lot, are you really getting a whole lot? Is it really?
I think yes.
Does it really matter at that point if you bring in Tommy Pham?
So.
If you're only competing for
holes.
one wild card spot, I'm just not sure that's going to make a difference.
But Tommy, they're winning 50 and 60 games. To say you're competing for a wild card spot, the way, and again, like if this was Tampa in the same situation, I would feel very differently about this. But it's not. The Royals have let their fans down now for 6 seasons. Like, and there is no hope outside of Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez for the future, right? Like, you're not, if we're being realistic. So It's just there. I think the risk reward, and by the way, too, I think anything that the Royals do, their biggest risk, quote unquote, comes to the organization in the sense that the players they're going to be in the market for, the biggest challenge for them will be paying the rest of their salaries. It's going to be a money thing.
You remember when, and there are a few similarities here. I know it's a completely different situation, but I do think it is at least slightly appropriate. Remember the Angels last season? Remember they went all in to try to make the playoffs? They had this thought that, Shohei Ohtani might re-sign with them, so they weren't going to trade him away and try to get a significant amount of value in return. Again, this is a completely different situation, but they went all in. Look at the team now. Look at them this season. They're a dumpster fire. They're an absolute dumpster fire. And they were ultra aggressive, trying to make sure that they made it to the playoffs with the team that they had, and it didn't work. And so I think that, you can use that as kind of a cautionary tale to an extent. Just make sure that.
But I'll give you the flip side of it. Do you remember when the Rangers went all in last year and traded for Max Scherzer and Aroldis Chapman and Stratton and all that, and it won them a World Series? But the year before that, they'd won 68 games. They were hemorrhaging for 2 or 3 seasons before that. Like the Royals, wildly disappointing. They made 2 big free agent additions in Semien and Seager, and then they pushed all their chips in when they had the opportunity, and it paid off. Now, different financial circumstances, certainly between those 2 teams, but there are with the Angels too. When you have disappointed your fans for so long,
I just don't think you can make that the reason why you go and make.
But if you're going to compare last year's
moves.
If you're going to compare last year's Angels failing at the trade deadline by being aggressive, you have to then also say, well, the Rangers were aggressive and won a World Series.
That's fine. I mean, that's a fine comparison. I just don't think that we can keep referencing like the reason that the Royals should do this is because they've disappointed their fans for a number of years. I guarantee
they're trying to build a new
that's not
ballpark.
Something that JJ Piccolo is even thinking about. It's not like, I need to do something, otherwise the fans are going to be pissed off at me. That's not.
No.
I don't think that's a realistic.
It's not a move to make a
expectation.
move in spite. It's a philosophy to be aggressive. I'm not saying you pull the trigger on a bad deal. I'm saying you remain aggressive at the deadline.
The philosophy to be aggressive should be any move that we make, is that going to increase our chances to make the playoffs this year? And I think that while maybe the talent level could be maybe modestly improved, and sure, like maybe your overall odds from a talent perspective go up, if your available slots to make the playoffs ultimately have gone down from the beginning of July to the trade deadline, which that very well could be the case, the AL Central title may be completely out of reach by that point, then your overall odds to make the playoffs, even with the additions that you've made, not nearly as high. I just think at that point you have to I think you have to calculate that, and I just don't think you say risk and reward. I don't think the risk and reward pays off at that point.
There are 3. Here's the other difference in 2014. In 2014, you were playing for 1 wild card spot that got you a wild card game. Now there are 3 wild card spots and you get a wild card series. I think that's the other reason that this would be a more aggressive circumstance. Like getting a wild card now is just as good as winning the division. So
and look, it could all be a moot point. I mean, they could absolutely play their butts off this weekend against Cleveland and still stay in the division race. They could do that. Could happen. I don't know how likely that is, but it could. If this team somehow is, able to find a way to at least score some runs and get some great pitching.
It is a unique circumstance for them this year, to me, because I think that they have this strange window that most teams don't operate in. They're so top heavy with, Witt and Perez and Reagans and Lugo and Waka, and then there's just so little after that I just don't know what we're so afraid of them trading away at this point. I guess that's the main thing for me. I don't think they've got a move in them that could be like, oh God, they gave up way too much. I don't even know I can't even dream up that potential trade, because outside of their top prospect, which they wouldn't trade anyway, I just don't think they have much that would say, oh God, I can't believe they gave that guy up. And there may be minor league bloggers and followers who disagree with me, but it'll be a very interesting trade deadline. Very, very interesting trade deadline for the Royals. got to get through this Guardians series first. Let's take a quick break. Don't forget, you got an opportunity to win Damn Jam tickets. Just text PARTY, PARTY, to 20357. We're going to draw some winners tomorrow. Message and data rates apply. We'll get into the NBA draft, the Johnny Furphy situation, the Johnny Furphy decision to go into the draft. How disappointing it is that he was sort of forced into that decision to some degree, and what might happen next, and how hopefully that circumstance changes for other players behind him. We'll get into all of that and more on the Royals as we make our way through Sports Daily on KFH.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
Royals baseball on KFH, available for free on the Odyssey app. Royals with a huge series starting tonight, hosting the Guardians. Tune into KFH tonight at 7, or simply download the Odyssey app and search for KFH. This portion of the program brought to you by Crestview Country Club. Got a little twilight golf in my future tonight, Tommy. Gonna take my son out, which will be experience. The girls love it. You know, they're kind of ball rovers. They get into it. I think my son will love it too. Just put on some music and let him cruise around in the cart. It'll be great.
You lucky duck. I wish I was getting out to do that. It's been a while. The Wichita Open came and went, and when that was done, I was a little golfed out. I wanted a little bit of a break, which I got, but now I really want to get back out and play again. So I'm jealous of you.
You should try it. Get your 3-year-old and see if you can't just pop out for some twilight. It's been nice to do it. It doesn't take very long. I can get it done in an hour and 15 minutes. I could probably play 18 if I really wanted to, and start, I might tee off at like 7:15. But I usually just play 9. We can't be late to bedtime. I'm pushing it a little too far at that point. But we appreciate Crestview's support. Give them a call. Tell them we sent you. Ask about all the different kinds of memberships they have. We're both out there. We both love it. All right, coming up in the next hour, we'll do our second giveaway. We'll give away some HTO in the second hour. We're going to get into the NBA draft quite a bit here in hour number 2. I'm sure we'll jump back to the Royals and look ahead more specifically to the Guardians series as well. A lot of good stuff. We'll have Tim Fitzgerald coming up top of the hour to talk K-State sports here with us. Glad to have Fitz back this week. So we'll do that right as we get into hour number 2. Get caught up with him on all the things football. See if he has any insight on the Goodland tight end, who is one of the best prospects in the nation. I believe is the highest rated prospect ever in the state of Kansas. And I'm from what I can gather, it's down to like K-State and KU, which will be one of the great recruiting battles of all time.
His brother committed to KU. His brother's going to play at KU. So
Yep.
that might make things a little bit more challenging, but I don't know. It's going to be fun to watch.
I think the lean right now is K-State. If I read it correctly, we'll see what Fitz knows about any of that and really anything else happening in football as they get ready for. Gosh, we got Big 12 Media Days in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks from today, I think they'll be in the middle of they'll be halfway home on those Big 12 Media Days out in Vegas for the first time. So we'll get with Fitz on that. We'll get the NBA draft and we'll look ahead on the Royals series. That's all coming for you. One more time here, though, in hour number 1, we'll tell you about our first giveaway, which is tickets to Damn Jam, 2 general admission, 2-day tickets. All you got to do is text the keyword party, PARTY, to the number 20357, and you could be on your way to that festival experience. Winners will be announced this Friday at 6 o'clock. Message and data rates apply. You can enter once every 24 hours. So good luck, everybody. Party 20357. We'll have something else for you coming in the second hour to give away as well. If you missed anything from this first hour, you got lots of different ways you can take that in. You can either go find our video stream on Facebook, on YouTube, on X. You can, those live forever. You can really go watch anything you want there as it has to do with that. You can leave comments there to us, by the way, as well. You can also go back and listen to us in podcast form. So I consume things this way a lot. Like if I have good shows that I like to, take them and go back and listen sort of on demand. You can do that with us.
We have good shows.
The show is available that way.
I didn't realize that.
Are you assuming that I listen to us when I'm in the car? I go back and listen to myself.
You just said that when we have good shows, you go back and listen to it.
When I have good shows, like other shows that other people
I thought you meant when you perform a good show, you go back and listen to yourself. Okay.
I almost never do that, by the way. Like I know a lot of people do, and I probably should, but I do not. I do not go back and review things like I once did when I was like, I don't. It's a little strange to me, but you can and you should. It's available for you at kfhradio.com or the Odyssey app. All right, we'll come back. Hour number 2, Sports Daily, Albracht and Castor. Don't go away.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
He's got all the insight of what you want to know and maybe some of what you don't want to know. Here's K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is Sports Daily here. We welcome back in Tim Fitzgerald after a week off. Ryan Gilbert filled in nicely, Fitz. Got a lot of hoops talk in last week. Probably get a lot of football talk in this week. How are you?
How are you boys?
We're good, man. We're good. Just chilling, trying to stay cool in the summer heat. How's Manhattan, Kansas right now?
It's been lovely in the 100. It's just a beautiful summer day. The animals are dying. I don't want to be outside, and it's muggy. Anyhow, it's a beautiful day.
I'm going to stereotype you right now, Fitz.
Okay, yeah.
We got your beautiful headshot, mugshot, whatever you want to call it, up right now on our video stream.
Yeah. Okay.
I am going to stereotype you and guess. You don't strike me as somebody, you don't strike me as layout by the pool guy. You strike me as you stay away from this kind of heat if at all humanly possible. Am I on?
Yeah, I don't have much heat tolerance. I blame a heat stroke on the pitching mound when I was about 12 years old. It ruined my life. But I do like to go out and work in the garden, but not in this kind of temperature. As for the pool, I often enjoy going to the pool. I just don't leave the cabana and drink service to get in the pool.
I gotcha. That's too bad about what happened to you as a kid. That's the only thing holding you back from a pro career, I know.
Yeah, I had that and the utter lack of being able to throw strikes. Actually, I could be with the Royals bullpen. But anyhow, I digress. We should probably talk K-State sports.
All right, K-State football right now. It is I guess it's a quiet time. Like, what happens now? And is anything been happening? Because what used to be a really quiet time is sort of not as much now in recruiting and portaling and all that stuff. Have we missed any big time, meaningful 2024 additions to this football roster in the last few weeks?
No. I mean, they're in. Month of June is filled with official visits. So we're kind of waiting on the Lincoln Cure decision that might come as early as tomorrow or the weekend. And there's some others out there. They just got a commitment from Brock Heath, a offensive lineman out of the Kansas City area, a really good pickup. So this has been more active in recruiting this June than any K-State football season I've covered. Not to say that it's different than what anyone else does. It's just different for K-State because usually recruiting is a little bit slower paced. And I think this last leading up to the 4th of July might be a flurry of action in K-State recruiting. I don't know how coaches do it, the chaos of holding all their camps and official visits and doing all this stuff in a month that used to be pretty slow.
Let's talk about Lincoln Cure a little bit, Fitz. If he ends up choosing the Wildcats, then you're looking at Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards, Lincoln Cure, like really highly touted, highly regarded in-state football players. I know that earlier this morning you posted a daily delivery video talking about recruiting in-state for the Wildcats. I mean, to me, that would seem like just an absolutely massive haul for the Wildcats to get those three in-state guys all playing for the team.
Yeah, exactly. You go through this roster, it's not just a lot of Kansas kids. It's a lot of Kansas kids in important roles. I mean, DJ Giddens and, you've got Austin Moore and Desmond Purnell, and you just go down the list. There's just so many Kansas kids playing key roles. And trying to lock down the state has always been important, but now it's almost impossible. And that was kind of the point of the daily delivery because people finally figured out you can win with Kansas kids. You can go, these Kansas kids perform at a high level once they get in college because they catch up. So out of the top 5 right now, we've got, a commitment to Penn State and Alabama. The other 2, along with Lincoln Cure, the other 2 appear to be headed out of state to big programs. And, I think Lincoln Cure will pick Kansas State when it's all said and done. So K-State will have only gotten 1 out of 5 of the top 5 recruits, according to 24/7. And still, like you said, Tommy, it feels significant because it's really competitive for these kids right now.
And isn't the fun part, you guys may not think this is as fun as we do, but the fun part is now, like, it's not just K-State that can win with Kansas kids. KU's winning with Kansas kids too. And
Right.
so now, like this Lincoln Cure thing, you've got, I think by most accounts, the top 2 for the best player in the state, perhaps the best player at a high school level prospect wise ever in the state, that the top 2 are K-State and KU. That's the way it ought to be, isn't it? Like, that's what it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, the problem with the state of Kansas is it's never developed enough talent just because of population and the way Kansas High School Activities Association designs their programs. They want you to be multi-sport, which is great for eventually becoming a star, but maybe not for the recruiting process. You might develop later. And Kansas State has done a really good job of, building a roster around guys that can get and develop. Now, Kansas is trying to do it, and it's going to get really competitive. And, Alabama and Penn State, we've seen Clemson in here, and, certainly Oklahoma comes in all the time. It's just getting really competitive in recruiting in the state. And if Kansas State can continue to keep guys, that'll be a great indication. But, KU's, I would take their running back in a heartbeat, even though the 2 running backs at K-State are Kansas kids that are really good. It's pretty remarkable, guys, how much talent per capita this state is producing right now.
It's been a few months since the shakeup with the offensive coordinator for the Wildcats. And of course, Connor Riley promoted. Matt Wells is the co-offensive coordinator. This time in the summer, I would imagine that between Chris Kleiman and then those 2 offensive coordinators, there's a lot of work going in on schemes and systems and how are we actually going to be offensively? What's our identity going to be from an offensive perspective? Do you have any insight on, where that is right now and what that process looks like for the Wildcats offense?
I think we're going to see, pretty much the same type of offense. Some of the pass schemes for Matt Wells are going to be incorporated in some of the option schemes, whether they're run throw or just run options, to try to make use of Avery's talent as a runner and a thrower, and the fact that he truly is a dual threat, and he's got some pretty good weapons around him that also can pose problems as runners or pass catchers. So I think they're going to incorporate a lot of that stuff in. They're going to want to have plenty of patterns that clear out the middle of the field for, if Avery doesn't have a receiver, then he's got, you can just get up the middle of the field. It's going to be fun. I would have loved to have been in their meetings after they locked down Dylan Edwards, because that's a guy you go to the whiteboard for and start designing plays. You don't mess around. How do we make use of this guy and keep DJ Giddens on the field and with Avery Johnson? And that'd have been fun to watch them start constructing those schemes, because I'm sure they've been added in.
Here's a question for you. And I think the answer isn't, well, let me just ask it to you. Rank in rushing yards for K-State between Giddens, Edwards, and Avery Johnson. What is, how does that look? Like, what's the split? What's the share? If those are the 3 primary ball carriers, which we assume that they will be, is it 50% Giddens, 25 Edwards Johnson? Is it more than that? How do you see that shaking out?
That's a really good question. And I don't know. I don't know how they'll balance it out. I know they'd love to run Avery a lot, but they also got to protect him. I guess in terms of just production by those 3 guys, I'd probably go, 45, 35, and whatever's left, 20. And the 20 would be Avery. I think that, that when they run him, it'll be for purpose. But I think we'll see mostly the work being done by Giddens and Edwards in different ways. But, you also can throw the ball to both of them. They're both really good receivers in different ways. Guys, the way K-State's designed its offense, it can line up with 2 tight ends and 2 running backs and end up with 3 wide. It really can be entertaining what they might be able to do with this offense.
From a wide receiver perspective, I know that that's always been a question mark. At least it has been, over the last season or two. There has been some rotation as far as who the personnel will be at the wide receiver position for the Wildcats. I know that they've got that the Penn State transfer coming in and all of that. But knowing the versatility of not only Avery Johnson, but of the running backs and of course, all the different schemes and the ways that the offense will be set up this season, do you feel like having really high profile wide receivers is super important for the way that this offense wants to be, or because of the versatility, can they utilize, some of these other weapons to kind of fill that role?
Yeah, well, I think they have upgraded their receiving weapons. I think this is the best group of receivers that they've had under Chris Kleiman. And so that gives them some really interesting and explosive weapons. I think Dante Cephas from Penn State could be big time. He might still be acclimating, but we've certainly seen, Keegan Johnson flash, and when he was healthy last year, and hopefully he will be healthy this year, and Jace Brown. And you've got some tight ends that have big shoes to fill with Ben Sinnott leaving, but I think we'll see that, particularly at pass receiving with Garrett Oakley. And you're right, Dylan Edwards can be on the field and all of a sudden become your slot receiver and become a legitimate weapon out of the slot. So as a defensive coordinator, you always have to be aware of the shifting. Are they going to go from, two back set with two tight ends and end up with, four guys split out wide and one tight end at the line? It gets really interesting, and it's going to stress coordinators quite a bit because they don't just have weapons. They have flexible weapons they can line up in different ways.
Breaking news here. Tim Fitzgerald, publisher, GoPowerCat.com. You can find his work at Life of Fitz. I did not know this was coming today, but we get it, Fitz. I'm not sure if you were already aware of this. We get the conference opponents for K-State men's basketball, who they play, where they play them, because we know it's not a true round robin, obviously, anymore. So right. I'm gonna rattle this off for everybody here because we just got this email in. So the home and away, the home and homes, the teams they'll play twice: Kansas, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Cincinnati, Arizona State.
Yeah.
That I like that. I like that. Home only. In my point of all of this, let me just say as I'm rattling this off, I think this is pretty advantageous for the Cats next year. Home only. Don't have to go to their place. Arizona, Colorado, Houston, Tech, West Virginia, and then your away onlys. So they're not coming to Manhattan. Baylor, BYU, UCF, TCU, and Utah. I got to tell you, you may be able to swap a little bit of that in and out, but as far as the home and aways only, that looks pretty good for K-State. You don't have to go to Houston. You don't have to go to Arizona. You don't have to go to West Virginia. You don't have to go to Lubbock. That's pretty good for the way things fell for them, I think, on that schedule.
I agree with you. It's funny. I just did a Cincinnati podcast with our 24/7 site last night, and Chad, my colleague who runs the Cincinnati site, says, I kind of hope Cincinnati and K-State get a home series in basketball, and now it's happened. That's that. I'd like that schedule. You get the three former Big 8 schools that all stick together on that schedule, and a couple new schools. Look, I'm not going to complain if myself or Ryan Gilbert has to go to Tempe. It's going to be okay. We'll pull through. We'll make it.
Well, yeah, the one of the away only games is UCF, so a Florida trip, could be in your future as well.
Yeah, well, you might wonder why I covered the game, and then the daily deliveries for the next 2 weeks were from Florida.
I look. We already talked about hot and muggy. You can have Florida. I'll go to the desert. That's more of my speed, where I'm from. That's interesting. I like that schedule. We'll dig into those today as we make our way through. I assume KU's will come down here pretty quick too. But just as we look at it in the realization, the reminder comes in that it won't be round robin. Do we even care? Like when you just look at the teams in this league next year and how awesome it's going to be, like, do we even care that I don't? That's not, as long as you get Iowa State and KU for K-State, as long as those, then anything else is pretty irrelevant to me, and an absolute win when you consider the teams that'll be in this league.
I agree. And if they ever go to the 20-team format, you only have one home and home. You'd play K-State, play KU, I assume, and then you play the 19 other teams. So it gets rather strange, but it also adds a lot of freshness to things. I hope they make an effort to spread out the home and homes. I mean, last year, I think BYU and K-State played each other 2 weeks apart. It was kind of silly. You're basically playing at the same snapshot. If you're hot or cold, you get in both the games, and it's kind of weird. So it's going to be strange having a bigger conference and kind of going all over the place and not seeing every team at home. And but it also is going to kind of keep the conference fresh. You're never going to feel like the schedule has grown stale because there's going to be shuffling through of teams.
Fitz, before we let you go, we'd be remiss not to mention that you get some great health news. I think I don't want to assume too much, but
no, it is. Yeah.
It looks like you got some good news. Fill us in.
Yep. So I went to Kansas City on Monday for my 3-month oncology. Maybe this was the 6-month visit because they were going to re-inject me with my testosterone suppressant Lupron, which it sucks, to be honest. But more importantly, the daily pills I take just absolutely destroy me and wear me down. I couldn't travel much last season. And my doctor walked in. She's just absolutely wonderful and said, well, I'm going to cancel your injection and going to move you from active treatments into observation, which is a nice step. It means, that you're not going to be taking pills and taking shots. You're going to be taking blood tests on a regular basis to make sure there's no sign of your cancer being active. And, I think it's important to point out this doesn't mean I'm cancer free. It means I'm currently undetectable. It came back on me last time when I went 3 years plus without having detectable cancer, and it came back. So I'll be very cautious with this, but also very happy. It's going to make covering Big 12 sports this season much more pleasant for me. It was really a grind last year, but it's big news. It's really good news.
We love it. We've all been praying for you, Fitz, and that's fantastic. And we're hopeful that everything, including quality of life, goes up. And listen, world, look out. We got full testosterone Fitz this year.
Batten down the hatches, everybody.
Woo!
Yeah. I'm going to be out there walking around in shorts, and my leg hair will be coming back like a real damn man.
All right, Fitz. Well, for real though, that is fantastic. If anybody out there struggling with any of that, Fitz is a great resource. You can follow along that journey. You're great at making that public facing. I do think it helps people, and good luck with all of that. Glad to get some positive news, and let's enjoy what will be, I think, the greatest college football season in the state of Kansas, and perhaps the greatest college basketball season in the Big 12.
Yeah, well, I'm straining to think of a better time for K-State and KU in terms of both being possibly great in both sports in the same season. And historically, I don't think it's even come close to this.
That's what we're hoping for. All right. You can follow Fitz's work, of course, at gopowercat.com. You can follow him on social at Life of Fitz. Hang in there, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, guys. Great to talk to you.
There goes Tim Fitzgerald. A lot of good stuff there. We'll see. Lincoln Cure, man. The overwhelming thought is K-State. So we'll see if that holds true here. Tight end out of Goodland, Kansas. Brother at KU.
Number 2 ranked tight end nationally.
Yep. And by the way, tight ends in the state of Kansas. What a lot of people might forget is Desan Brame at Derby is, I think, the 4th ranked tight end nationally. Now he's probably, his list of schools looks a little different. But man, 2 tight ends like that in the state of Kansas. You kidding me? How wild is that? 2 of the top 4 tight ends in the country playing in Kansas. That's what we're talking about. The quality of football in Kansas right now is out of control. All right, we'll come back. Let's get into the NBA draft, the Johnny Furphy dilemma, when we return on Sports Daily.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it. It's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
All right, we have an HTO text to win contest to get going here in our second hour. Listeners can enter the contest. Text the keyword TEA to short code 20357. That'll win you a free iced tea, more than 20 flavors at the 3 locations around the Wichita Metro, or some free rain coffee, I should say, and some free rain coffee. One of each, free iced tea, free coffee on us here at Sports Daily. Good luck, everybody. TEA to 20357. The NBA draft's first round is in the books, Tommy. Look, there are names that we recognize. It is not a draft that, dazzles us by any means. Zach Edey went a little earlier to Memphis, I think, than people thought. There are a handful of college players. Stephon Castle pairing with Wembanyama seems like it could be fun. You have, Donovan Clingan going all the way down to 7. I think he looks like a pretty good pro. It was sort of a big men thing. You mentioned some names. One that really draws my attention and sort of interests me is Terrence Shannon Jr. for Minnesota. I think that seems like it could be a decent fit. But what we don't have is Johnny Furphy. Johnny Furphy made the decision to forego his eligibility at Kansas and stay in the NBA draft. We talked about that ad nauseum at the time, and the risk reward. And what people have to remember is that because of an issue with work visas, which, so basically a work visa really limits international students' ability to earn money. And so NIL opportunities are very restricted for international students. It would have been the case for Zach Edey. It's the case for Johnny Furphy and any international player that's playing college basketball. Now, there are bills in Congress right now that are being discussed to sort of create, I think, a loophole to where NIL opportunities can be available for international students too. But until that happens, you can't get a full grasp of things as an international student. So it's not as easy to say, oh, Furphy made the wrong call. He didn't go in the first round. His decision wasn't the same as other decisions that need to be made because his NIL opportunity is not nearly as large as most of the players making that decision. Let's take Grady Dick, for example, last year. Grady Dick had a much more difficult decision in a different way in that it's like lottery or come back and earn an NIL. Furphy's, it's like you come back and try and improve your draft status, but financially it's not a slam dunk that college is the better option for him. Now, it may ultimately end up being that since he didn't get taken in the first round. That's really disappointing for him. I hate that, but he didn't. And so, they got to get that rule fixed because that really sucks. I think he would have come back had he been able to earn NIL.
Well, and if you strip that all away from it, and I know NIL is the biggest thing on the planet and it's incredibly important, but from a development standpoint, I mean, we've seen so many players over the years under Bill Self take massive steps forward from one year to the next. And, I know that Furphy, there was that kind of perception that he would be a one and done type player. And we saw flashes of him being really, really good and being like, yeah, that guy can absolutely play at the next level and will be a good pro. But it wasn't consistent, that we didn't see that from start to finish in his time at Kansas. And really, he was only with the Jayhawks for a portion of the season because he didn't join right away. And so I think that from a developmental standpoint, yeah, you come back for another year and take NIL away from it altogether. I think there is that likelihood that he does improve his draft stock after year 2 with Bill Self and that sort of thing. But that's not the reality. And I think that, the NIL opportunities and the fact that it's limited for him being an international player 1000% played into that decision. And I think that had there been an indication to him that he would slide out of the first round in the draft, remember, like there were projections that he could potentially be in the top 10. Like I know there were mock drafts a few months ago that had him at 9 or 10, and he
there were plenty that had him. There were plenty that had him undrafted. Not undrafted, sorry, into the second round. Like when this all started,
I think them had him in like the high teens, low 20s.
I think he moved up as time went along. But when he initially made the decision, the reason I think we even had the discussion is because it wasn't a foregone conclusion that he would be a first round guy. Now, his stock rose as we thought it might, and we just sort of hoped at that, but at least I did. I was like, okay, it looks like he'll be safe. When I started seeing more recent mocks put him that high, but in the beginning, his decision was one that was not as obvious. It was like, man, he might not go in the first round. And then at that point, is that okay? Like, are you better off? Because there's almost no question historically with Bill Self that had he come back, he would have increased his draft status. The one thing, though, that the other part of this that made that more difficult than usual is this was perceived as a weak class. So what happens if you come back? Even if you improve as a player, you may enter a class that's much deeper that pushes you out anyway. So I think it's unfortunate that, that you had to weigh all those things. I do think if the rules allowed him to earn his full potential at NIL, he probably would have come back. That's not the situation. He had to take the risk more or less, and we'll see. And now he's going to have an opportunity to get on the floor and earn this. This isn't the end of the world. It's just unfortunate because it's a very different financial situation for these players in the first round or not in the first round.
Yeah, and I get that. I get those NIL opportunities. Had they been able to be fulfilled more, it would have made the decision a whole lot easier. I do think, though, that with situations like this, there is that caveat that he is international. But in general, I mean, NIL is, I don't want to say it's clouding the judgment. It's definitely influencing the decision making for prospects in general, sometimes in a positive way. And I'm not going to argue that, but occasionally in a negative way. Like maybe they think like, hey, there are going to be better opportunities in the pros than what I could maybe make in NIL deals. But then in the case of like Johnny Furphy, he slides out of the first round, and is that money going to be there? And then it will be because he can't earn at a high level because he is international. But I do think that does make decisions that much more complicated for prospects about whether to stay in college or go to the pros. It's been that way since NIL has been a thing. No doubt about that. I just feel bad for Furphy in the regard of taking NIL, taking financials out of it entirely. I think he absolutely would have benefited from another year developing under Bill Self and the Jayhawks, and he's not going to get that opportunity.
I agree with that for sure. But they need to fix the rule. And if they fix the rule, then this isn't hard. Think about a guy like Hunter Dickinson. To me, he is as much a poster boy for the scenario of college being being a better choice. We see it in college football. We're seeing it enough, right? Will Howard's a good example. Will Howard's in a better financial situation by going to Ohio State rather than going into the draft this past season. That's not hard for us to imagine. He's probably making a lot of money at Ohio State in NIL and certainly more money than he, would have made guaranteed at least in the NFL. Hunter Dickinson is, to me, as obvious as there is. And Hunter Dickinson's not an obvious pro, but he's an obvious college force that is now able to capitalize, and it makes college basketball better. College basketball is better because of it. We may have lost Hunter Dickinson to the draft already, but he's a great player. And we're going to see more great players. And KU has had as many of those kinds of players as any program in the country. Those super seniors, whatever, those players that have been there, that have worked their way up and through and become all, these just fantastic players where it's going to be a better decision for them to play another year. That's going to make college basketball better. It already is, in my opinion. We won't see guys reach as much in the draft, except for the international players who still have to reach in the draft. And that's unfortunate. And I hope they get that fixed soon because it's a little bit silly. Think of the spirit, Tommy, of NIL. Think of what it is, right? Name, image, likeness. That shouldn't matter. At least I can't think of a circumstance where that should matter when it comes to like work visa. There's a company that feels like it will benefit by Johnny Furphy being there. That sort of thing. They need to be allowed to do that.
The other thing to keep in mind with Johnny Furphy is that I do think that there is a real possibility that regardless of where he's drafted in the second round, I mean, he could very easily be the first pick in the second round. I mean, he's widely considered the best remaining player on a lot of people's draft boards. But regardless of where he's drafted in the second round, I think there could ultimately be a narrative a year from now, 2 years from now, however far down the line, that X team got an absolute steal by bringing in Johnny Furphy, because I do think that he can contribute fairly quickly to an NBA team. He's got the size, he's got the shot making ability, he's got all of those things. I think really maybe the only thing that he is lacking is maybe strength a little bit, maybe defensive abilities to an extent. But I do think that teams could absolutely use him, and he could be an impact player fairly quickly. And I think that could, I'm not guaranteeing that it will be, but I think there is a likelihood that that could be a narrative that develops by whatever team drafts him, that we got to steal in Johnny Furphy. Look at what he's been able to do for our team.
Yeah. From a basketball perspective, I like his prospects as an NBA player. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to be successful. What I hope is he sort of gets into the same kind of situation Christian Brown did, gets on a really good team where he can potentially just go in and like chisel his role out while he continues to develop. But you can look at the flip side of it too. Or end up on a really bad team where the role is more available to you. So I think he's in a good position either way. And I think he's wired to do either of those things too. He'll be, we can all see the upside in Furphy. If you watched KU basketball, the potential that just sits there and oozes. So, bad team opportunity. That's why we thought he could be, so good for KU this next season. Unfortunate. I hate that he didn't go. The other storyline of the draft tonight, Tommy, will be Bronny James. The Lakers did not take Bronny in the first round. Isn't it even more a good opportunity now if he's there? And if Bronny is just sitting there in free agent, in the second round, don't you just take him if you're the Lakers? Isn't that sort of a no-brainer?
What's their pick in the second round? Do you know where they pick in this round? Are they early?
I can tell you. I think it's 55. I think it's 55.
Okay. I don't know.
So no, it's not early.
Yeah.
It's toward the end of the second round.
I think you have to take into consideration who will be on the board at that point.
Who's going to be? But who will be on the board? Who cares? It's pick 55.
No,
it enhances your chances to keep his dad.
But there are, and more than likely, a lot of these guys, or maybe all of them, are going to be gone by 55. But there are still some fairly notable names that are out there. There's a couple of guys from Duke. Kyle Filipowski, he's not going to fall to 55. But Cooper Flagg is still out there. Harrison Ingram from North Carolina is still out there. There are a handful of pretty good players. Tyler Kolek from Marquette. They're still there. If it's me, I understand. Look, I get it. And it's been talked to death about the appeal of Bronny James to the Lakers because of LeBron. But you can't sacrifice. If there's a better overall player that's waiting for you, why would you sacrifice that to take Bronny James if Bronny James is a worse player than whoever's available at number 55?
I just don't know that there's going to be a guarantee when you get that deep into the draft. Here's the biggest issue for me with the Bronny thing. I think it's such a good story, and I think it enhances your chances to keep LeBron for maybe this year and longer. I think it's a no-brainer. But B, let's not pretend like Bronny James can't play basketball. He was a high level prospect that came in and had a really unfortunate medical situation, and we didn't get to see his full potential, I don't think, at USC. I don't think it's outrageous for him to be drafted in the second round based on what kind of, if he didn't play college basketball, Tommy, he was a highly rated enough prospect that he would have been flirting with the draft anyway. If we were back in the old days where he didn't have to do it and he just came out without playing a second, that's so I think his potential is still there enough to justify the pick anyway.
Hey, I sure hope.
I
sure hope that his 4.8 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 2.1 assists
he had a heart condition.
USC will translate
he had a
to the
heart
NBA.
Condition. He barely got back on the floor.
I understand that, and I know he's been cleared to play in the NBA. Just saying, it certainly didn't translate for him in his 1 year in college.
He blew up at the combine. There have been players drafted into the NBA that have far more risk over the years than Bronny James. We're only acting like it's outrageous if the Lakers do it because he's Bronny James, right? But players that have less potential get drafted all the time in the NBA. It's a crapshoot. It's hard. So taking a kid with his genetics and his, I guess workouts at the combine, and when you combine all of those things to take him at pick 55, I mean, it is, if that happens now, if I'm another team in that range, I ain't letting that happen. I'm on the phone. If I'm at pick, if I'm the Kings at pick 45, I'm on the phone and being like, hey guys, if you want him, you're going to have to come get him because I'm going to take him right now. I'm going to take him.
Why wouldn't teams do that? Like, why wouldn't teams do that?
I would. Absolutely. I think they should. I think it adds a little bit of the I think it adds a little bit to the intrigue here. I think they should absolutely do that.
If I'm the Lakers, I'm like, I'm not going to like bend over backwards to try to get this guy.
But what if he's there at 55? Like, what if he's just there and they're picking at 55? That's what I'm saying. Like, if that best case scenario presents itself, easy decision for the Lakers. You didn't have to do anything. He's there at 55. When this all started, we wondered if a team was going to play that chess match in the first round. They're not doing that now. So if they don't do it today, why wouldn't you though? I'm like, if I'm any of these other teams, like, you can't tell me that you can get the Lakers to trade up a couple of spots. Like, give me something. If you want him, give me something, or I'm going to take him. And we're just going to mix this up a little bit. This is all business, right? There's no friends in this deal. Like, if you want him, you come get him. 869-1240. We'll watch that tonight, round 2. I'm not sure how I feel about separating round 2 from round 1. I don't know that we'd ever do that if it wasn't Bronny James in there. Maybe we would. I can't imagine there's a ton of interest if they do this in a year where it's not Bronny James in the second round. But that'll be tonight. 869-1240 is the number to call. You've got your text to win contest for this hour rocking and rolling. It is our HTO giveaway. You can text the keyword TEA to short code 20357. We'll come back. We'll look ahead to this Guardian series for the Royals, the pitching matchups each game, and all the details next on Sports Daily.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is Sports Daily. It is Albracht and Castor here on KFH. Glad to be with you. We want to say thank you to Prairie Fire Coffee. Mornings at KFH. Staff enjoys a great cup of coffee from Prairie Fire Coffee. We are rolling through this Thursday edition. Let's look at the Guardian series. We wanted this to be this massive, opportunity series for the Royals, but now it just sort of feels like a survival series to me. And to just get through it when you have to play a really good team and you're in the thick of a wild card chase and all of those things. As we look ahead a little further on the schedule, series against Tampa feels like a decent opportunity. Boston certainly is a decent opportunity. And then there is some schedule relief. It's just not as daunting as it has been. So now's as good a time as any for them to get hot. So it's Waka tonight against Lively. And then you get Marsh and Tristan McKenzie. You get Reagans against Bybee. And then you get Lugo against Allen. It's so strange with Cleveland because it hasn't been their starting pitching. That's the reason they're so awesome. So, I think you give the Royals a clear advantage in the starting pitching category here. But when it becomes bullpen / offense, it's a pretty clear advantage for Cleveland in this series.
I mean, Ben Lively has been pretty good this season for the Guardians. 7-3 and ERA slightly over 3. His WHIP isn't awful. It's about 1.15 or so. He's only pitched one game against the Royals. It was on the road for them in Kaufman last year, and the Guardians beat him. And Lively got the victory there. I think the thing that is, going to be concerning, I mentioned this when we talked about the Royals at the top of the show. Even though the Royals took 2 of 3 from Miami, they made the Marlins pitching, which is atrocious, look pretty solid for the most part during that 3-game stretch.
Yep.
And now you've got an upgrade, not only in Ben Lively, but just generally speaking with the Guardians pitching. So that's a concern for me. Michael Wacha in his first game back last week off the IL pitched okay. I mean, he pitched fine. But of course that was in the series where the Rangers swept them. And again, the Royals offense kind of wasted a good Michael Wacha start. And so they've got to make sure that they don't waste another one of his starts. He's got an ERA now slightly over 4. He's 4-6, but I do think that he's pitched a little bit better than that. I do think that those stats are a little misleading. just based on what we've seen from the Royals offense when Walker's been on the mound.
Yeah, look, I'm not terribly concerned about the starting pitching for Kansas City. Now that could go sideways, of course, but it's more about, can they just get some consistent offense in this series, consistent pressure on Cleveland. This will be, it'll be kind of like Oakland almost, I think, where once you get sort of toward that back end, your chances seem to diminish. Like, you've got to get to the Cleveland starters. You got to come out early in these games and be productive. You've got to come out and basically own home field. Like this, they're at Kauffman. The Royals, up until this homestand, had been much better offensively at Kauffman. So make it happen. Put pressure on Cleveland. Don't give Cleveland a lead late in a game.
And I'm looking at, from a betting perspective, and I think this is a really important question to ask. For now, is it just an auto bet to bet the under in these games that the Royals play in because of their lack of offensive production? And especially in a game tonight when you're talking Lively and Waka, the line, I think, is at like 8.5. To me, that does seem like the under is a good play in that game.
Without going back to look at their lines, there was one game against Texas where there were 8 total runs. I think there is, and I don't know what the over-under that day was, but I think there's probably a pretty decent chance they have not hit the over in a run total, Tommy, in about 10 games.
And I'm not sure that it really matters the opponent. because really it comes down to a lack of hitting from the Royals and pretty solid pitching for the Royals as well. So I think that, until proven otherwise, and especially in this series this weekend, I think the under is probably a pretty solid play in maybe all 4 games.
We might have missed the boat on that. Cleveland is a really dynamic offense. So I would rubber stamp it and be fine with it. I don't know that I'll actually do it because Cleveland's offense does scare me just a little bit. And I do think at some point you're going to have a Royals, positive regression to what they're capable of offensively. So we missed the boat on that. We should have been on that. We should have been doing that because you're looking at probably 10 games in a row they've been under. I'm a little concerned about it now against Cleveland just because Cleveland has been so good offensively this year. 8.5. I'd rather go under than over. I'll tell you that right now. Under is the positive money. That scares me a little bit too. Why is that when that trend has been there? But that is the case. So we'll see. But not a bad idea. Man, how did we miss that? We could have. Should have been paying attention. I got to get betting out back out to the forefront, or maybe I don't have to. Now it's not quite
it's not quite the daily account. Yeah.
It's not quite the daily routine it is during football season. But I've enjoyed it, the baseball betting more this year, certainly than the first 2 seasons. I've had more fun with it. But I should lock back into this like I was earlier in the season because I actually made some money early in the season when we did that. Royals -105 on the money line tonight. By the way, I would say of the bets out there, the obvious ones, I'm with you. I would take the under. But I'm a little nervous about that with Cleveland because they can score a lot of runs real fast. 869-1240. We'll come back. We'll give you the details of how you can listen to that game and what else is on the network tonight. Coming up next.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy. have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
That's it for us. Thanks for being here with us, everybody, on this Thursday. You got Jim Rome following us, Bob and Jeff locally back here from 2 to 4. Infinity Sports Network programming until 7, when the Royals take on the Guardians. Presidential debates. We got Royals Guardians. Come on now. We'll get you covered on that tomorrow. I didn't even know there was a debate
tonight. How? I'm totally behind the times.
Let's watch the Royals and the Guardians.
I will.
Let's do that instead. We'll be back tomorrow. Max will be in for Jad. We appreciate you listening to the program. We appreciate you watching the program. You can always go back and do both, either free on the Odyssey app or on the video stream at Facebook, YouTube, or X. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you Friday.